All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this mini grants and refill station grants informational workshop. My name is Clarissa Sanglang, and I am a staff analyst who supports our Safe Clean Water Grants and Partnership Program. We're really excited to share about the two grant funding opportunities today, and we're going to teach you what you need to develop strong applications. Before we begin, I'd like our grants team to introduce themselves, and I'm just going by what I see on my screen. Let's start with Renee.
Thanks, Clarissa. Good afternoon. My name is Rene Moreno. I serve as a management analyst supporting our grants and partnership program, as well as our public art program. I'll hand it over to Diana.
Hi, I'm Diana Ramirez. I'm also a management analyst in Grants and Partnerships Program. Happy to see everybody today. Passing it to Robert.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert. I'm a management analyst working with the Grants and Partnerships Program at Valley Water. I am looking forward to today's discussion with you all, and I'll pass it over to Amy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Amy Fonseca. I am the Supervising Program Administrator for the Grants and Partnership Program here at Valley Water. And I'll go ahead and pass it on to Don.
Hello, Don Rocha, Assistant Officer with Valley Water. Nice to meet you all. I'm going to hand it off back to Renee.
Okay, and I'm going to steal the mic from Renee. And before we get into our workshop, I did want to announce real quick a volunteer opportunity this month. So on May 18th, we're going to have National River Cleanup Day. This is Saturday, May 18th. And this year we have more than 30 public cleanup sites that need your help. So we will provide you all the cleanup supplies, including gloves, bags, litter sticks, and more. We just need you to show up. Last year, we had more than 40 site coordinators that led over 600 volunteers. And altogether, we removed approximately 30,000 pounds of litter from local waterways. So this is a national effort. So if you participated, you'd be joining people from all over the nation to help clean up our waterways. If you want to be part of that effort this year, you can learn more and you can sign up at cleanacreek.org, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. All right, next slide. Okay, so now we can get into our workshop. Let's look at our agenda for today. We'll start with an overview of Valley Water's Safe Clean Water program. And then we'll go over the mini grants and refill station grant program. We'll tell you the eligibility guidelines for the applicants and project eligibility. We'll go over the application process. We'll talk about funding, insurance, CEQA, and other important things to note. And we'll have question and answers at the end, but feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box, as Renee mentioned, or you can do the raise hand feature in Zoom. You do not have to wait till the very end. Next slide. All right, so let's start with an overview of Valley Water. For those unfamiliar with us, we are Santa Clara Valley Water District, also known as Valley Water. We are a public agency that is a special district of the state of California. We're most known as a wholesale drinking water provider for Santa Clara County, but we also manage some waterways in our region and we carry out flood protection activities. On the left side of this slide, you'll see Valley Water's mission, which is to provide Silicon Valley with a safe, clean water for a healthy life, environment, and economy. And this mission here is guided by 3 pillars, and that's depicted by the 3 images on the screen: clean, reliable water, flood protection, healthy creeks and ecosystems. Each of our grant funding opportunities are based on these 3 pillars. Okay, so speaking of grant funding opportunities, these are administered by our Grants and Partnerships Program, which is under the External Affairs Division at Valley Water. So this grant program is funded through a voter-approved special parcel tax, and that's called the Safe Clean Water and Natural Flood Protection Program. So it's a long name. If you look at the lower right portion of the screen where it says your tax dollars at work, if you visit some of our grant project sites, you might see that sign at the site that's showing your tax dollars at work. So this tax was originally approved by voters in 2012 and was renewed in November 2020. And this renewal allows Valley Water to reinvest around $47 million every 15 years for projects that deliver safe, clean water, natural flood protection, or environmental stewardship to communities in Santa Clara County. Now let me direct your attention to the image in the upper right. The Safe Clean Water program has different priorities, and all the grants and partnerships funding falls under Priority F. So Priority F's purpose is to support public health and public safety for our community. Priority F is then further divided into different projects, and the Grants and Partnerships program is Project F9. So if you look at the section on the left of the slide, you'll see that there are 4 funding opportunities in Project F9. And each of these funding opportunities have key performance indicators or KPIs. And you can see those KPIs on the website. It's not here on the slide, but we do keep track of metrics and submit reports regularly to ensure that we're meeting those KPIs because these are public dollars and our goal is to ensure that the public benefits from them. So in this workshop, we will cover 2 of the 4 funding opportunities shown on this slide. We'll cover the mini grants and the water bottle refill station grants. The mini grants are smaller grants of up to $5,000 per project, and they're available year-round, and they're intended to give smaller projects a chance for seed funding, and they're open to a wide breadth of community members and organizations, and it's to help make resources equitable or equitably accessible by all communities throughout the county. As for the water bottle refill station grants, they provide $5,000 for the purchase and installation of water bottle filling stations. And like the mini grants, it's also available year-round. And just real quick, I do want to point out one of the other funding opportunities on the list, which is the standard grants program. We're not going to get into that in this workshop, but I did just want to say that it is currently going through a redesign, and we plan to launch the new and improved program for standard grants in fall of 2024. So keep an eye out for that, and you can learn more on our website, valleywater.org/grants.
All right, great. So this slide, you'll see this table is just basically providing you all with a overview summary of our 3 different grant funding opportunities that Clarissa had mentioned. So just starting out with the first column, for standard grants, we typically don't have a minimum or maximum funding amount, but we do have up to $1.4 million available each year to distribute. And as Clarissa mentioned, this program is currently going through a redesign. So more information about this will be opening up within the coming months. So if you are not signed up on our listserv, we highly encourage you to do so. That's probably the most easiest way to stay up to date with any updates regarding our grant funding opportunities. And what sets the standard grants apart from the mini grants and refill station grants is that the agreement term is a total of 5 years, and it's a reimbursement-based type of grant. And then if you look over to the last 2 columns, we talk about our mini grants and refill station grants, which we'll be going more in depth, but just overview purposes, we do have $100,000 each for each program available each year. And the mini grants agreement terms are over 2 years, whereas the refill station grants are 1 year. And for the payment for these both 2 programs, we do 50% upfront once your agreement has been signed and executed, and then 50% upon completion. And for both mini grants and refill station grants, we are still currently accepting applications on a rolling basis, and our new pot of funding will begin July 1st. Yeah, next slide, please. And I'll hand it off to Diana R. to kick us off with the mini grant program.
Thanks, Robert. So one of our grant opportunities is the mini grant program that we've mentioned, and this program is designed to provide seed funding to encourage community engagement in activities that further safe, clean drinking water and water conservation, flood protection, and environmental stewardship in Santa Clara County. And there's a little like link to our mini grants just right there below the little seedling. And I'll pass it over to Clarissa.
Yes, so our refill station grants program, the aim is to increase the access to drinking water in our communities and also to help reduce plastic waste. So we aim to prioritize applicants and project locations that work with underserved communities or locations serving school-age children and students in Santa Clara County. So this funding opportunity is structured very similarly to the mini grants, and you'll see what we mean in the next slides. Okay, so before we get into the applicant eligibility, I did want to point out the graphics there. As Deanna mentioned, mini grants had that little seedling, and the refill station grants is represented by that water drop wearing the sunglasses. So in this table, you'll see the seedling or the water drop for the things that apply. So this applicant eligibility table, it shows the types of organizations and groups for Santa Clara County that are eligible to apply for these programs. The first are public agencies like cities or towns, special districts or municipalities. And the next are nonprofit organizations with a 501c3 tax exempt status. And we do have a little sub-bullet there. Those without that 501c3 status may be eligible to apply if they have a demonstrated affiliation with a nonprofit that has that 501c3 status. So these are special cases, and if you think that that may apply to you, then you can reach out to us and we can go over the details and figure it out. Okay, so next on the list are schools, and that applies to public schools or private colleges or universities. Next are for-profit organizations. They can apply as well, but there's a caveat that the project has to be publicly accessible. And next are organized community groups with an established structure. So basically they need to have an individual in that organized group who would be responsible for signing the agreement and the insurance and things like that.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cover project eligibility. So the first thing is projects must be located in Santa Clara County. They must benefit Santa Clara County residents. And they must provide one or more of the following benefits. So enhance creek and bay ecosystems, improve fish habitat and passage, identify potential water reduction technologies and methods, research new and innovative water conservation techniques, prevent trash and contaminants from entering our waterways and groundwater, expand trails and open access, increase community awareness and understanding of any of the above benefits, and conduct educational or outreach opportunities related to any of these benefits. Next slide, please. For refill station grants, they also need to be located within Santa Clara County, and it must be installed in a location with public access, somewhere where there's no fee charge to get in to access it. It's available. Priority is given to locations that serve economically disadvantaged communities and or school-aged children. I'm going to pass it over to Clarissa to go over application requirements.
Thank you, Deanna. So we covered eligibility for both the applicant and the project. Now we'll go over application requirements. So you'll see on the first line, both of these programs accept applications on a rolling basis, meaning it's ongoing or until funds run out. And the next line here, it's about our grants management portal. It's called Flux, F-L-U-X-X. That is our central hub for all of your grant applications and related documentation. So we only accept applications through Flux. We don't accept any hard copy or emailed applications. And you can access Flux through the URL there, valleywater.flux.io, or you can just go to our grants website and we have the link to Flux there. You can actually start today just by creating an account for yourself and your organization. And once you have that account, you can see the application and you can see the different parts and what information we ask for. We also have a demonstration video on our website on how to create your Flux account. And so there's a link to that demo video on valleywater.org/grants. And of course, if you have any questions or you run into some issues, you can always reach out to us and we'll help you out. Okay,
you.
so
Oh, sorry to interrupt. We have a question. And again, folks, if you have a question, feel free to type them into the Q&A. So the question is, what does public access mean exactly? So public access means it's open to the public, that it's open at certain periods of time, that folks don't have to pay to access or participate. And then, I don't know, Robert, if you want to talk a little bit about the refill station and what makes something publicly accessible, like with the example of the school.
Yeah, so as Amy mentioned, public access means any hours of the day. It's usually like business hours or whatever hours is specified by your organization, where members of the public can enter the facility without any type of fees involved or membership that they have to be a part of. And so for refill stations, how schools have demonstrated that public access is that they, oftentimes they hold like community events or sports games where community members, family members, and people who are not necessarily a part of the school are able to go on campus and utilize the refill station that they've installed using our grant funds. So that's just kind of what we mean by public access. And if you have any more, questions or like any blurry lines that you might want to consider, you could always reach out to us and we could help you figure that out as well.
All right, we got another one. Thank you so much, Robert. Are you accepting refill station applications for the current fiscal year 24 or just fiscal year 25? We still have plenty of funds for fiscal year 24, so I would encourage you to apply. I don't think we're going to run out anytime soon, but the next fiscal year starts July 1st. So we'll continue to have the opportunity. I think we currently have about, I want to say like 40,000 left for this fiscal year. So the funding as of today is not an issue. So I encourage you to apply.
thank you. Great questions too. Okay, so continuing with our application requirements, just in the previous slide, real quick there, because we do have documentation that we require for both mini and refill station grants. So you'll see it's the starting at the second to last line there, signed IRS W-9 tax form. And this just tells us your organization's tax ID number and it verifies the status of your organization. So the next document that we would require is a site permissions from the property owner. And this permission would authorize you or your organization to do the project on that site. So some examples of site permissions could be lease agreements, property owner consent letters, or permits from the relevant authorities. So depending on what document you submit as a site permissions, we might require additional verification to show that, the person signing that permissions letter has the authority to grant the permission. So getting these permissions are very important. So before you start any project activities, make sure that you have the permissions in place. And this just helps us make sure we're following compliance or regulatory requirements and makes the process smooth. Next slide. Okay, so other documents that we would require with your application would be delegation of authority. And like the permissions, this can be different types of documents. It just depends. So whatever the type, the purpose of it, the document, is to serve as confirmation that the individual signing the application, signing the grant application on behalf of the organization has the authority to do that. So this can look like a board resolution or meeting minutes or just the organizational policy. And this just helps ensure that there's a paper trail of authority to apply for and carry out that grant. And I'm going to show you an example on the next slide. But before we move on to that, we'll just go over the rest of the requirements, which are pretty simple. It's going to be a picture of the proposed locations or proposed location of the project. And the last two applies just to mini grants. And the first is the demonstrate a 25% match of the total project cost. We'll go over that during the funding portion. And the last is a timeline and list of tasks outlining how the grantee plans to complete the project within 2 years. Okay, so here is that example of the delegation of authority documentation. And we actually received this from a real grantee, so this is a real example. In this case, this is a board resolution from the grantee's board that authorizes their staff to sign documents on behalf of the organization. We do have a guide that explains the different types of documentations we can accept and also how you can obtain them from your organization. And if you don't currently have any existing documentation, then our recommendation is you have a resolution signed by the governing entity of your organization. And we have recommended template language to help you draft that. And it's available on our website there. In green, you'll see it on the bottom, valleywater.org/grant-resources.
Okay, we'd like to go ahead and go through a step-by-step guide to help you get familiar with the application process. So step 1, you can do this today. Go on our website, valleywater.org/grants, and review our grant applicant and project eligibility requirements and all that. Go ahead and go through, look for your resources, dig in there, find some cool information. And then step 2, you can go into our Flux portal. The website was linked earlier. It's also in our resources page. You can scroll down and there's a link to Flux. Register yourself and your organization to access the online application. Step 3, make sure to have all the required documents, as you mentioned earlier. The refill stations, make sure you have a photo of the proposed location, a floor plan, and for mini grants, make sure to have your scope, budget, and timeline prepared in advance so you can submit it in the application. Step 4, fill out the online application, get in there, put all your information in there, upload all your documents, and hit submit. Once you hit submit, we'll review your application. If we have any questions or clarification, we'll reach out to you and we'll work together to get a great application ready. And then if you have any additional feedback or questions, always please reach out to us. We have some contact information at the end of this presentation. We're happy to help. And we're here to help you submit a strong application, and we want to work with you on retrieving all the required documents, facilitating the grant process. We encourage you to apply and look for opportunities as they come up. And like we said, we have plenty of, next slide, funding. So funding, the mini grant program offers up to $5,000 in grant funding for each awarded project. The refill station is just $5,000, and that covers the installation and maintenance of the refill station. And then for mini grants, we highly recommend that you request a full 5,000. So make sure you identify all your costs to get to that 5,000 funding. We can work with you on that too if you have any questions about that. And like we mentioned, each program has a funding allocation of $100,000 to support multiple projects and make a meaningful impact on our communities. We encourage you to take advantage of these funding opportunities as awards are given on a first come, first served basis until all funds are dispersed. Like Amy mentioned, we do have plenty of funding for the rest of this year. So go ahead and get in there, get your applications. We'd love to see them. Back to the table. So the last bullet, I covered the first two. The last one is for refill stations. Priority is given to organizations that serve or are located in disadvantaged communities and or cater to students or school-aged children. A little more on the funding. So once your agreement, this applies to both. mini grants and refill stations. Once your agreement has been awarded, you'll get the initial payment. So for mini grants is 50% of the total grant amount. And then for both, 50% of the total amount. So for refill it'll be 2,500, and then mini grants depends on what it is. And then you get the remaining, the second half, once your project is completed and you've submitted all the required closeout documents. For mini grants, the closeout documentation includes a final project fact sheet and a signed payment request form. And we have templates for that we can send to you. For refill stations, the project closeout includes a photo of the installed station with pre-designed Valley Water signage that grants staff will deliver. So we will provide signage for the refill station and give it to you so you can go ahead and install it and take that picture and send it to us, and then we can finish up the final payment. Moving on to, oh, go ahead.
All right, we got a question. We serve all individuals, mostly seniors who are blind and visually impaired. Will this demographic be eligible? Yeah, if you're working with a nonprofit, you're very likely eligible. If you want to ask about a specific project you have in mind, or the refill station, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to meet with you. And you can schedule an appointment by emailing us, or on our website, we have links where you can set that up. Second question, can you install a combination water fountain / water bottle refill station and still be eligible for 75% of the cost? So the refill station does not include a match, correct, Robert?
Yeah. So the question is combination water fountain, water bottle refill station. So I'm assuming you're talking about like the type of model here, and absolutely you could definitely, it's totally up to you on what kind of model of a refill station you want to purchase. We actually do have some examples and links to some manufacturers' websites on our resource webpage if you would like to take a look at, just kind of seeing how much they cost and what kind of options are best suited to your organization's needs. So you could definitely order one of those as long as it falls within the $5,000. For 75% of the cost, you don't have to worry too much about a match for refill station specifically. We don't necessarily require that you have a 25% match or anything like that. So as long as the work is done with the $5,000 that we grant you, you should be fine. I hope that answers your question, but if not, please feel free to let us know, or you could always email us offline too.
Oh, Robert, quick question. So what if their refill station is less than $5,000? Let's say it's $2,000. So would we only provide $2,000, or what else could they use the funds for?
Yeah, so oftentimes our refill station grantees would have leftover funds, because usually the cost of installation and purchase of the station itself is less than $5,000. And so what those leftover funds are intended for is any long-term maintenance that you might require over the next few years. So oftentimes people would use that grant funds for replacing any type of filters that the station might have, or just any type of maintenance that they might need to do depending on the station that they purchased.
All right, and we got a follow-up question. I thought you said we had to cover 25%. So we do have two different programs that we're presenting today. One is the refill station grant. So those water bottle filling stations. That one does not require a match. We also have mini grants, which are for small projects. So a project is something with a start and an end date, something special that you're thinking. So those opportunities for mini grants, not the refill station, have that 25% match requirement. And I hope that answers your question. If you wanted to chat more, you can also raise your hand and we can unmute you. But thank you for the question. Really appreciate it.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to cover insurance now. All insurance requirements, they must be met before we execute the agreement. So we'll ask you for documentation of your insurance, and then we'll work with you and make sure that we received all the required documents. Grantee must meet insurance requirements for the entire agreement term, like if it's general liability, auto liability, workers' compensation. Insurance coverage may be modified or waived on a case-by-case basis as approved by our Valley Water Risk Manager. And we understand that different types of projects may require insurance needs and different insurance needs. And we aim to work collaboratively with you to adjust or waive insurance requirements as needed on a case-by-case basis. So typically refill station grants are eligible for an insurance waiver. We just have to submit the request. So typically that's approved. And I will pass it over to Clarissa to go over environmental compliance.
Thank you, Diana. Okay, so for environmental compliance, Valley Water is required to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA. And as a public agency, we are required to have CEQA reviews for all projects, even grant projects. And just real quick, a CEQA review, it analyzes a project's potential environmental impact. We have an internal environmental planning unit that handles this review. So applicants don't need to have a completed CEQA review prior to submitting their application. So you can submit your application and we'll send information to our environmental planning unit. And as part of their review, they might have questions. So we might reach out to you and get some answers and relay that to our environmental planners. So a CEQA review is complete once our environmental planners have signed the document of compliance. So this review is completely done by our environmental planning unit. They facilitate that and not the grant staff.
Great. And then just a few important things to note regarding the refill station grant program is that the grantee is responsible for seeking out a licensed contractor in the state of California to install the station. And so this, basically means like we don't necessarily request to use a certain vendor or plumber to install it. We kind of have it laid out in the agreement that you are responsible to having your own licensed contractor for installation. And for another thing for refill station grants is that the organization is responsible for ongoing maintenance and repairs beyond the agreement term. So our agreement term covers 1 year, but beyond that, the organization is responsible for any type of repairs or maintenance that the station might need in the future. And just a quick note, we do not provide supplemental funding. Like you can't apply for another refill station grant award for operation and maintenance costs for an existing station. All of our grant awards are meant to be installing a new station at your facility. And as mentioned, you can choose whatever refill station style best fit your needs. So we have, different options that we kind of compiled together on our website, but of course, those are not necessarily the options you need to choose from. It's just whatever fits your need. We do have some options that are good as like outdoor stations or ones that are attached to the wall, ones that are refrigerated, ones that have a water fountain and a water bottle refill component to it. So really depends on whatever you wish to use. And the agreement term, as mentioned, is 1 year from the date that both parties have signed the agreement. So you have 1 year to install the station and then submit the required documentation, which is just a photo of your station with the pre-designed signage that we will deliver to you. And then for this slide, for mini grants, just one important thing to note is that you have 2 years from the date of agreement execution to complete your project tasks. And then, once complete, you do submit like a final project fact sheet and a final payment request form, which we, often communicate with you and so that we send you the templates for you to fill out. All right, and then so some important reminders for both the mini grant program and refill station grant program. As mentioned, since these are taxpayer dollars that fund these programs, it is important that these projects provide public access. And that they benefit Santa Clara County residents. We also highly encourage that you do not begin work on the project prior to the agreement effective date. And lastly, our staff is here to be your main point of contact for your application and throughout your grant project. So, there might be special circumstances where you might need to, or you might want to invite like a board member or get extra permits for your project. So we are here to kind of, facilitate that communication process. So if you have any of those type of questions or requests, feel free to send them our way, and we could communicate on our end to accommodate your needs. All right. So this slide here just kind of gives you a visual of the timeline. This is also on our website, and this is specifically for the mini grants. So starting with the left side, the yellow part, you submit your application, and that is again done through Flex. We will take the time to review your application, and then reach back out to you, most likely schedule a meeting with you to go over any type of recommendations or feedback and questions that we might have. Around the same time that we are doing so, we are also sending your application information to our internal environmental planning unit for them to do their CEQA review. So during this period, there might be a lot of back and forth and retrieving different documents, but again, we're here to kind of help you and facilitate this process, which is a really, really unique opportunity that our mini grant program offers. We kind of are there for you to kind of really build a strong application. And then once your application has been revised and been selected for funding, we will notify you within 4 to 6 weeks after you submit. And again, this really just depends on how fast we're able to retrieve any type of documents or any responses to any follow-up. So it might take 4 to 6 weeks or even longer in some cases. So after you are notified of your grant award, we will then work closely with you and our internal teams to draft and execute an agreement. This is where we kind of make revisions to the scope and budget and then finalize the agreement for signatures. Once the agreement is executed, and when we say executed, we mean that it is signed by your organization and then our organization, you can begin working on your project. At this stage, we release 50% of the grant funding upfront, and then upon project completion, you submit your final report, any other type of documentation, and then we'll review that and then send out the remaining 50% of the funds. So again, we just want to emphasize that we are here to ensure a smooth process, and our goal is to support you throughout the journey. So if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to help you. Next slide, please. Pass it over to Clarissa to go over the timeline for the refill stations.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, so this is our timeline for the refill station grants. It's very similar to the mini grants, but a bit more simple. The first step, of course, is the application. So the applicant submits their application and required documents through Flex. And the second step is award, and that includes the grants staff reviewing the application. This usually takes around 2 to 4 weeks, and there may be a back and forth between staff and the applicant just to get more information. So once we've completed a review and we have awarded the grant, then we'll move on to the next step, which is execution. And this normally takes about 4 to 6 weeks. And during this step is when we draft the agreement and we finalize it with the grantee and with our internal folks. And once the agreement's finalized and signed by everybody, then we can give the first half of the grant fund. So it's 50% up front and 50% at the end. So we'll give the first half. And then the next step is installation and closeout. So then the grantee has 1 year to install the refill station and do our closeout documents. And as Leanna mentioned, the closeout documents are just a picture of the refill station along with the signage and that final payment request. And after that, we can send the remaining $2,500. And this timeline is on our website, so you can find it there and reference it for your convenience.
Great, and I just want to quickly go over a couple examples that we have. So our first example of a mini grant project that was done a few years ago was a county park mural project, and this was done by a nonprofit organization called Keep Coyote Creek Beautiful. And so what the project entailed was they designed and installed a mural that featured nature scenes reflecting this healthy creek that you see here. And its purpose was to basically educate people about the natural resources of their local waterways. And this site was specifically selected because it was prone to graffiti, and it was a site where the organization did quarterly BioBlitz events. In addition to this project of like the mural component, they also hosted a community input day at the park and sent surveys to their neighbors to gather feedback for this design. So you could kind of see how like there's different components to this type of mini grant project and how they tied it into the project criteria that we have to ultimately have this fully installed at Hellier County Park. Next slide, please. All right. Another sample project is from an organization called Friends of Master Gardeners of Santa Clara County. And we provided funding for their project to install planters, irrigation, and plants to create a teaching garden at Marshall Cottle Park here in San Jose. They also conducted virtual and hands-on educational outreach to teach gardeners how to grow plants in small areas while reducing waste and conserving water. The project allowed the community to learn more about sustainable gardening. So this is just, again, just an example of what you could do with $5,000 to kind of get your ideas going, or contribute to a larger project that you might have.
Robert, we had a quick question. Will you be sharing today's presentation? Yes, we will be sharing the presentation with a follow-up email. It will also be posted on our website, and I'll put our website again in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, so here are examples of the refill station grants. As Robert mentioned, there are different types that you can select, and it's just up to what meets your needs the best. So these were installed at different locations in Santa Clara County. You'll see there one was at a school, and then we have a little league. So we've worked with different organizations, schools, nonprofits, even religious organizations, sports. And the whole purpose is to provide, a refill station that gives safe, clean water and reduces plastic water bottle waste in our communities.
Right. And we strongly encourage you guys to take the next step and apply for funding through our grant programs. As mentioned, you could begin today by visiting our grants portal on our website and registering your organization on the Flex if you haven't done so already. In addition, we highly encourage you all to check out our resources that are found on our valleywater.org webpage. On that website, we have a lot of different links from frequently asked questions, our award timeline and process, eligibility and application requirements, as well as that Flux demonstration video that Clarissa had mentioned earlier. And next slide, please. Great. And one last thing, we are going to be sending out a feedback survey for you all to take if you can. That would be a huge help for us to kind of know what to improve on or what you'd like to see in our next workshop. So I believe the link is in the chat, but we'll also be sending that out in our follow-up email as well. Great. And with that, we just want to say again, we are here to support you throughout your grant application process. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You could reach us through our hotline number, as you see on our screen. You could email us grants@valleywater.org or visit our website, valleywater.org/grants. We are also available to meet over Zoom. We do have a scheduling link on our main webpage as well, where you could sign up for a time that's convenient for you, and it'll select a time on all of our calendars so that we can meet over Zoom. And lastly, just one more reminder, Valley Water is still seeking volunteers to participate in this year's National River Cleanup Day on May 18th. So if you're interested, you could sign up and volunteer by visiting cleanacreek.org. And with that, we could open up to any other questions that folks may have. But we just wanted to quickly say thank you all again for your time and for joining us for this informational workshop. And we hope to see your application come